Yo, 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 yo. Welcome to the X Factor Sports Podcast, Season 5, Episode 2. This is a very, very, very special episode. Not only are we in Season 5, we are in the second episode, but it is the fan appreciation episode. And the reason we made it the fan appreciation episode, because this is our 50th show. Believe it or not, we have made 50 shows of the X Factor Sports Podcast. I appreciate all of y'all tuning in, and we're doing this for the fans. It's going to be a great episode. Can't wait for you guys to tune in and dive in and watch. We are on YouTube and Rumble. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. You can also listen on all the platforms that have podcasts available for you to listen to. The X Factor Sports Podcast is on it. All right, so without further ado, let's dive into episode 2, the 50th show. We get in with the layup lines. Let's talk about Major League Baseball. All right. We had the Home Run Derby on Monday night, and then we had the actual game last night. In the Home Run Derby, a National League player won. It's all good, but it was a great Home Run Derby. Teoscar Hernandez from the Dodgers won the Home Run Derby against a Royals player in Bobby Witt Jr. He's actually from Texas, hometown kid, so it's cool to see. The Home Run Derby was new this year. They put in some new wrinkles where they gave you a certain amount of pitches. I think it was like 35 pitches. And then after you got those pitches, if you hit a ball 425 feet, you got like a bonus. There was a bonus round where you got multiple strikes. There was no clock, and you got extra hits. It was a pretty cool wrinkle to it. I'm not sure if I like it yet, but it was just cool to see Major League Baseball be innovative, try something new. And with that, they still had the 8-team tournament. I actually picked Pete Alonso to win his third Home Run Derby, and he ended up not winning. He didn't even make it out of the first round. I think he only hit 12 home runs. But congratulations to Hernandez from the Dodgers, winning by 1 home run, went to the final round against Bobby Witt Jr. Bobby Witt had 13 home runs in the bonus round and hit one back to the wall to tie and didn't get over the wall, lost 14-13. So it was a lot of fun to watch. It was pretty cool. So congrats to them on a great Home Run Derby. And then last night, the American League did what they do, won the All Star Game 5-3. There was a scare, though, early on. Mr. 700 million Shohei Ohtani hit a 3-run home run, just showing up and showing out everywhere he goes. Had me a little nervous, but then we had the American League show what they can do, and Jarren Duran from the Boston Red Sox hit the game-winning, what ended up being the game-winning home run, 5-3, American League. Now, we have won, and I'm saying we because the American League, that's where the White Sox live. We have won 10 out of the last 11 All-Star games. We won 9 straight. National League won last year. Now it's come back to where it belongs, to the American League. So shout out to them for winning. I wish they went back to what they used to do with Major League Baseball. The All-Star game used to determine who had home field advantage in the World Series, the American League or the National League. And believe it or not, baseball actually is my favorite All-Star game as I get older, because you can't shortchange the All-Star game in baseball. Them pitches still coming 100 miles an hour. You got to hit the ball. You still got to run. They have a good time, but it's still taken seriously, unlike basketball, where it just looks like America's greatest pickup game, and then flag football that they call the Pro Bowl. So I still like the baseball All-Star game. I've actually been to a baseball All-Star game in real life, and it was amazing. So got a special place in my heart for those games. So it was cool to see, and it was cool to see the American League win it back. All right. So we're going to shift over to the NFL. The NFL is doing crazy business. They are proposing an 18-game season now. All right. They proposed this a couple years ago, and nobody was having it. The owners weren't having it. The players weren't having it. So I shouldn't say the owners weren't having it. Of course they are. They want more money. but the players were not having it at all. So what the NFL did was like, all right, we're going to give it to y'all little by little. Let's make it a 17-week season, right? Or let's make it an 18-week season and play 17 games. That's what they've done the last couple of years, still with one bye week. So what's being proposed and rumored now is an 18-game season with 2 bye weeks. So that makes the season 20 weeks of football. Football fans love it. The players hate it. All right. You got to think it's still grueling on the body. That's 5 months of football before the playoffs. And if you make it to a Super Bowl, you played 6 months of football. All right. I'm old enough to remember in the 90s, early 90s, when the Bears were in the NFC Central. Tampa Bay used to be in our division, for you youngsters that don't remember that. But it used to be an 18-week season. It was still 16 games played, but it was 2 bye weeks in 18 weeks. Now they're going back, at least giving 2 bye weeks, but they're making the season 20 weeks. I don't know how I feel about that. You guys comment, let me know what you think about it. This is a fan appreciation episode, so we want the fans to get involved. 20 weeks of football is crazy to me. All right, but obviously the NFL is a gold mine, so they want to generate as much revenue as possible. But I'm going to tell you what I think it really is, and that's why you come to the X Factor Sports podcast, right? You get the real deal. You get a different view of sports from my point of view, from my eyes, and what I think it is. And I've been saying this for months. If you've followed the show, you've heard me hint at this plenty of times. The NFL is beefing, or they are on a collision course with the NBA. They have no love lost for the NBA. That's all I'm seeing here is infiltrating the National Basketball Association schedule. Think about it. I'm going to start from the draft. The NFL draft is in April, right? You got that going on. The draft ends May. You got Hard Knocks, trade rumors, training camp, OTAs, all this stuff. May, June, July. They got to get ready for training camp. The Hall of Fame game is in August. They start playing football preseason. Then the season starts after Labor Day. The NFL is trying to make from September 20 weeks of football. So it gives you 5 more months, right? So we're getting into February. During the All Star Game is when the regular season will end. The NBA All Star Game is around Valentine's Day, right? The NFL is already putting NFL games on Christmas this year, and Christmas is on a Wednesday, right? They're already stepping on their toes there. Then we want to push the season through the NBA All Star break, and then the playoffs is going to happen after that. So by the time the football season ends, it's going to be March Madness the next week. I mean, damn, they taking over literally from April to February is what they're trying to do, April to March. So me, with my business eyes, I'm looking at it like the NFL is trying to squeeze all the juice out of this calendar, out of this lemon of a calendar, and give you as much football always, all the time. They don't care who toes they step on. They don't care about the Arena Football League. They don't care about this other league that The Rock got. They don't care about none of that. They want NFL all the time, every day. And I feel like if they do 20 weeks of a regular season and then a playoff, that's going to be a grueling task. I don't know how the players feel about it. I'm assuming that they don't like it at all because they're not going to get paid any more money for it. So where's the win-win in that negotiation when it comes to the 20 weeks? But that's what's being proposed in the NFL front. That's the news we got on them. Tell me what you think. Should we get 20 weeks and 2 buys in the NFL season, or should we leave it where it is and let them play 17 games? All right. Then the last thing on the quick news, we got USA basketball. If y'all been paying attention, USA basketball, the men's team, they've been playing in exhibition games. They played in one on Monday against Australia. Started out strong, up by as many as 20, 22 points. And then the second half, it was like Australia featured Josh Giddey. I mean, I'm a Bulls fan and we just got him, but it's Josh Giddey. Like, he looked like an all-star playing in this game. And the USA once again showed some vulnerability. Okay. They allowed over 60 some points in the paint. We ended up only winning by 6 points, 98-92, gave up almost 70 points in the paint. And this is with Embiid, Bam, and AD. They can't play LeBron for very long stretches of time because he's in year 22. He's almost 40 years old. That's just the reality of it. And they're going to have to play Tyrese Halliburton longer than they think because he is the only sure point guard that gets them in the sets, and he takes care of the basketball. He made 2 clutch threes in a corner when they needed them bad. When the league got cut to 4, I think, he hit 2 back-to-back threes to open it up a little more, and then Devin Booker closed it out, hitting all his free throws. AD had a monster game, but at the same time, they're vulnerable with teams that play at a fast pace because it speeds up Team USA, and Steve Kerr is the coach. There's a little bit of that Golden State DNA in this team. Jay, why do you say that? Why are you saying it? What do you see? I say there's some Golden State DNA because they shoot a lot of threes. They were making them early on in this game on Monday. They shoot a lot of threes. They are careless with the basketball. They have way too many damn turnovers. Again, in Australia isn't even one of the top teams they'll play. So they got to calm down on the turnovers and don't rely so much on the three-point shot. They have great ball movement, though. So on the other side, with that Warriors DNA, they moved the ball around great. Everybody was touching it. They were trying to get the best shots. And it's a little bit of overpassing because everybody's a great player, right? So it's going to take time for them to figure it out. I understand that, and that's why you have exhibition games. But what scares me is when they play against teams with great guards that push the pace and that can score on the inside, like a Serbia, or when they run into Canada again, because Canada has all NBA players. When they run into France, when you got to deal with size and outside shooting, you got a dynamic player like Wemby. That's a matchup problem for anybody. Those are the things that'll worry me. But like I said last episode, I still have the USA winning the gold. They should. But these are some things that should concern the locker room. We need to cut down on these turnovers. We need to play better, right? So I think they will, but this is a good exhibition game. They got another one coming up. So it'll be interesting to see how they do there. So with that, we're going to stay in USA basketball and talk about the elephant in the room, of course, as to if Jaylen Brown got snubbed by Team USA. I want to see, and y'all tell me what y'all think, all right? Derek White got put on the team after Kawhi Leonard left. But everybody is talking about Kawhi Leonard leaving and Derek White getting on the team is why Jaylen Brown got snubbed. My question about if Jaylen Brown got snubbed is if he got snubbed before the team was even formed, right? It had nothing to do with Kawhi Leonard leaving. Okay? Jaylen Brown was one of the best players in the NBA for the last 2-3 years. So he should have been considered to be on this team. Before even a Drew Holiday was considered on this team. Before a Tyrese Halliburton or even an Edwards. Jaylen Brown had been playing better basketball than these guys over the last couple of years. Since they went to the finals 2 years ago. He's been an all-NBA player. He's been an all-star. He's a max contract guy. So the basketball court is the least of the reasons why I think he got snubbed. We all know what it is with Team USA. Nobody wants to talk about it. Grant Hill wants to get on TV and say, oh, the team has to be a good fit. There has to be some cohesion. We all know that's BS. The real reason why Jaylen Brown got snubbed off this team is 100% political. All right? It can't be his talent. He's better than, I can name 5 people right now on this team that Jaylen Brown's better than, and he's a finals MVP. How does he not get a shot to go? It's 100% political. You got to think, when a guy that's outspoken and as intelligent as Jaylen Brown signs his $300 million contract, and in the press conference, he talks about, I'm trying to bring Black Wall Street back to Boston. You don't want to have to answer those questions if you're Team USA when you go to Paris or you play against these other countries. They don't want to have to deal with that. The Kyrie situation is totally different. Once Nike dropped him, I knew he would never play USA basketball again unless Team USA is sponsored by a different brand. But as long as they're sponsored by Nike, Kyrie will never be able to play. But when it comes to the case of Jaylen Brown, it's because they think he'll be too controversial, because he has views that are different from what other people may want him to talk about in mainstream media. Because he's his own man and he has his own two legs that he stands on and he has his own principles, they are punishing him and not allowing him to play on Team USA basketball, even though he's one of the 15 best players in the NBA, probably top 12. But we're talking about fit and team. I'm going to give you guys a little insight on basketball, okay? I've played a little. If you put the best players in the world on the same team, they will figure out how to make it work. It's not that hard, all right? Players that want to win and players that have won understand how to sacrifice to win. He's been playing with one of the best players in the world on his team since he came into the NBA. He knows everything about sacrificing for the greater good to win a championship, playing alongside Jason Tatum. He just proved it. So to say he doesn't deserve to be on that team because it's not a good fit is BS. All right? That's why he didn't make the team. It's a political thing with him. I'm going to give y'all another one. Back in 1992, when the Dream Team went over to Barcelona, right? Back then, Team USA was sponsored by Reebok. And if y'all watch the Dream Team documentaries and all that, you've probably seen this. But they were sponsored by Reebok. Jordan is a Nike guy through and through. All these brands are competitive. They're trying to get an edge. This is when Nike was trying to make their move in the basketball because they used to be a track shoe, right? USA wins the gold. When they win the gold medal, everybody has to wear the USA warm-ups on the podium. On the USA warm-ups, it has the Reebok logo. What did Michael Jordan do? One of the greatest marketers we've ever seen in sports. He put the American flag across his shoulder over the Reebok logo. Y'all think he did that because he's patriotic? You're more naive than they are, all right? He was not finna show as a Nike athlete that he was representing Reebok, okay? Yes, there was patriotism involved. He on Team USA. But that was a marketing move to the T. So it's always been some political undertones and guidelines and all these things, even with Isaiah Thomas, right? It'd have been different if Jaylen Brown had issues with players years leading up to the Olympics like an Isaiah Thomas did. He deserved to play on that team too. In 1992, he deserved to play on that team also. But that was probably a team chemistry issue. He had gotten his head split open by Karl Malone. Obviously what the bad boys did to the Bulls. What he did to Larry Bird and the Celtics. Charles Barkley openly said he didn't like him. What he did to Magic Johnson in the finals when they jumped in and pushed each other. So there's a number and a litany of things that happened leading up to the selection in 1991 as to why Isaiah didn't play. You have none of that evidence on Jaylen Brown. Everybody loves him. Everybody enjoys playing with him. He's played with these guys in All Star games. So what else could it be other than what his stance are from a principled position in terms of how he wants to build up Black Wall Street and what he talks about in society and his views on social issues in this country? That's why he got snubbed. So y'all let me know what y'all think after hearing all that. That's my stance on it. I think it's because of his social issues and his stance on social issues is why he did not play on Team USA. And hopefully we win the gold, but he is one of the players that should have gotten on it. And to be clear, he's not the only player that's ever been snubbed from an Olympic team, right? But in this current present time, he is the one that should have been on the team. So y'all let me know what y'all think about that. All right. Now, for what y'all been waiting for, again, this is the 50th show, the X Factor Sports Podcast, Season 5, Episode 2. I want to thank you guys for tuning in, the fan appreciation episode. I want to take time to thank some of the fans that have been with me from day one. All the guys out in Chicago, my guys Darrell, Coop, all the brothers, my family, everybody for tuning in, watching, liking, supporting. If you're interested in any other merchandise, the X Factor Sports Podcast shirts, they come in all size, shapes, and colors now. Even little toddlers have X Factor Sports shirts running around. So be sure to hit me up. You can get any kind of color you want of the shirt. You might also see this nice cap that I got on my head. We always got new things coming at you. You just got to get at me to get the merchandise. And you can also listen on all platforms that take podcasts of the X Factor Sports Podcast. Now, because it's our 50th episode, and because we're in July, this was America's birthday, so to speak, I guess, when we got our independence, quote unquote. So we had to do something special for that 50th episode, and we're going to get into Mount Rushmore. What do I mean about Mount Rushmore? What could Jay be talking about on a sports show about Mount Rushmore? Well, of course, we're talking about the Mount Rushmore of sports, right? We're going to do it like this. We're going to talk about the NFL and the NBA. We're going to start with the NFL, the Mount Rushmore players at the skill positions, all right? In Mount Rushmore, for those of you who can't count, there's only 4 heads on the Mount Rushmore, all right? So this ain't going to be your top 5. Based on what I know and what I've seen in sports, in my opinion, and what I think, who are the Mount Rushmores at each skill position in NFL history. And I'd love for you guys to tap in and message and let me know what you think, like, disagree, or agree, and tell me what you think. So we're going to start with them QBs, all right? The quarterbacks. In the Mount Rushmore, we got Tom Brady, Joe Montana, Peyton Manning, and my favorite growing up, Dan Marino, number 13. That's right. So a lot of y'all may be looking at that list and saying, how does he have Dan Marino on there? Why does he not have Patrick Mahomes, yada, 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 Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, all these people, Terry Bradshaw? You got to understand something. When I think of an athlete or a player that is great, it encompasses a lot of different things. Of course, when it matters, but what you did and your impact on the game. Again, this is Mount Rushmore. So these are people that you can't tell the story of football or the story of basketball at these positions without these players, in my eyes. So everybody knows about what Brady did. Everybody knows about Joe Montana, undefeated in Super Bowls, no interceptions, greatness personified. He was the number 1 guy before Brady took the mantle. And then Peyton Manning, a guy that played in the same era. And then there's Dan Marino. Dan Marino played for the Miami Dolphins back in the day from like 84 to 2000. When Dan Marino retired, he had virtually every single quarterback record there was. All right. If you don't understand how good Dan Marino was, still one of the most gifted players to ever throw the ball. He was the first quarterback to reach 400 touchdowns, 50,000 passing yards, 60,000 passing yards. Like all of these records that exist today is Dan Marino etched those in stone first. So there's no other reason for him not to be in the Mount Rushmore QBs for me when it comes to talking quarterbacks. Because you can't, what quarterbacks are doing now, Dan Marino was doing almost 40 years ago. He was throwing 48 touchdowns. He had 48 touchdown seasons with 5,000 passing yards. He was doing this in the 80s. So the standard was set before Patrick Mahomes, before all these guys were even thought of. All right. The original, Dan Marino. For the running backs, this wasn't hard for me at all. Didn't take much time or effort. These have always been the top 4 for me. Mr. Jim Brown, rest in peace. Mr. Walter Payton, sweetness, rest in peace. Emmitt Smith and Barry Sanders. I don't think you're going to get too much argument out of that. When you think running backs and dominating the sport, Jim Brown and Barry Sanders played 9-10 years, but when they played, they dominated out the gate. And Emmitt Smith, for his longevity, he's the all-time leading rusher, and he took Walter Payton's record out. Walter Payton is known as one of the, not only the best running backs in football, arguably one of the best football players, period. Right? All of these running backs have won MVPs in the NFL. In a team-laden sport where it's quarterback-centric, you have running backs who were voted most valuable in the NFL. And Barry Sanders, even though he played for the Detroit Lions, he carried that team in the 90s to playoff games. And if you've ever played Tecmo Bowl, he's unstoppable. All right. So he'd probably be on the Mount Rushmore of Tecmo Bowl players, period, him and Bo Jackson. But yes, when you talk running backs, these are the four I see. Mr. Jim Brown, Sweetness, Emmett, and Barry. No questions asked. All right. Then when we get to the wideouts, the wide receivers, again, easy to make. I'm grateful that I was born in an era where I got to see all four of these guys play. Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, T.O., and Megatron, Calvin Johnson. Yes. I hated seeing him play against the Bears. He was unguardable and a monster. If he had a better team to play with, man, he'd arguably be one of the greatest wide receivers, if not the greatest wide receiver of all time. But these four, you can't deny them. Jerry Rice, we know what it is. 208 touchdowns for his career. There are people that have played 15, 16, 17 years of football, wide receivers who've played for a long time, ended their career, Hall of Famers that have 89 touchdowns. Hall of Famers that have 110 touchdowns. He's lapped these guys at the wide receiver position. 3 rings, Jerry Rice, hands down. And then Mr. Moss himself, who is usually argued, it's kind of old school, new school. The old school guys going to say Rice, new school guys say Moss, the freak himself. So yeah, T.O. is in the same era with Moss. And then you got Calvin Johnson, Megatron as well, rounding it out. Crazy. All these are NFC guys too. I didn't do that on purpose. I mean, the NFC just produces better wideouts, I guess. Sorry, guys. I don't know. But that's what it is. All right. For the tight ends, this is crazy. When I was putting this list together, I noticed 2 damn Chiefs tight ends are on the Mount Rushmore. 2 Chiefs tight ends. And if we would have did the Mount Rushmore, if this podcast existed 2 years ago, these guys probably wouldn't even been on here. But Gronk, of course, Travis Kelce is arguably the greatest tight end ever. And if he catches Antonio Gates in touchdowns, because Antonio Gates leads all tight ends in touchdowns. If y'all didn't know, you know now, with 116 of them. And that's my point. He has 116 touchdowns as a tight end, leading all tight ends. Jerry Rice has 208 touchdowns. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? How great these dudes are, right? So Gronk, Kelce, Tony G, and Antonio Gates, right? Round out the tight ends. It's crazy because wide receivers are all NFC guys and the tight ends are all AFC guys. So there's room for everybody apparently, but those are my Mount Rushmore tight ends. Some people can argue, old heads will probably say Kellen Winslow Sr. need to be in there, Shannon Sharp. But when we talk about productivity, changing a position, like these guys probably could have went outside and played wide receiver and been just as productive for what they do at their position. Gronk is a do-it-all guy, the prototypical tight end, can block for you, red zone, sure hands, champion, clutch, everything you will want. So this is what I see when I think of the Mount Rushmore of tight ends. And remember, the Mount Rushmore only has 4 heads on it. So whoever you think it should be on here might be the 5th guy. All right. Now we're going to slide over to the other side of the ball on defense. Linebackers. Again, it didn't take me much time to figure this out either with the linebackers. LT, the great Lawrence Taylor, Mike Singletary, the 85 Bears, Ray Lewis, and Dick Butkus, Mr. Linebacker himself from the Chicago Bears. Yes, we got 2 Chicago Bears linebackers in the Mount Rushmore. If you don't know, you better check your history and check what linebackers did for that franchise. All right, Brian Urlacher didn't even make the list, but he another one. Lance Briggs, but we're going to keep it at 4. These are the 4 greatest linebackers that are in NFL history. on the Mount Rushmore linebackers. What's understood don't need to be explained. Like I said, the Bears are known for linebackers. That's probably about it, but they're known for that, right? And I don't know if anybody can argue with this list, but these linebackers are just greatness personified. All right. On to the cornerbacks, the DBs. All right. And the top DBs on the Mount Rushmore, we got Prime, Deion Sanders, Rod Woodson, what he did with the Steelers, Mel Blount, again, another Steeler in the 70s, used to lay people out. Revis Island, Darrelle Revis, what he did for the Jets. When I think cornerbacks, those are the four. I kind of juggled Champ Bailey and Darrelle Revis, but when Darrelle Revis' impact was as a shutdown corner, Revis Island, what he did in the seasons he put together, I had to put him ahead of Champ. Mel Blount, for my old heads and my football historians, the reason we have the bump and run, the 5 yards and in, is because of this man right here, Mel Blount. He used to lay people out. His physicality was like a safety, and his strength, what he used to do at the line of scrimmage, they had to put in a rule to separate these guys 5 yards before you can contact. So shout out to him. When you make history like that, you get your head sketched on the Mount Rushmore for sure. Last but certainly not least, in the NFL, we got them safeties. All right. The Mount Rushmore safeties, Ed Reed, of course, Ronnie Lott, Mr. Half a Pinky Finger, Ronnie Lott, Troy Polamalu, and Brian Dawkins from the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, these are the top four safeties. They go on the Mount Rushmore. These are the heads you want to see. This is why wide receivers don't like going up the middle, because of these guys right here. All right. Not only were they the most physical players, sometimes they were the smartest players on the field. The IQ was through the roof. You talk about Ed Reed. The one play that stands out to me is when they were playing against the Colts. He knew the play that Peyton Manning was going to do. He ran the hitch route and pivoted and turned his back to the quarterback, went the other route, and got an interception. It's probably one of the most unbelievable plays you'll ever see a safety make on a quarterback. Literally turned his back and went the other direction and baited Peyton Manning 40 yards away to throwing a pick. It was unbelievable. Ed Reed for sure. Ronnie Lott, what he did, believe it or not, he played on the same team as Joe Montana and Jerry Rice in the 80s. Like, you got three guys that are on the Mount Rushmore of all-time greats. They played together on the same team. It's ridiculous. Troy Polamalu was Steeler great, of course. Hall of Famer. He should have walked in the Hall of Fame when he retired, but they got to wait. They make you wait 5 years. Same with Brian Dawkins. Hard-nosed, grimy, tough, smart player for the Eagles, Brian Dawkins. That's my Mount Rushmore for safeties. So y'all let me know what you think. You saw the list. You can watch the show, rewatch the show, listen on all places audio are allowed, and let me know, dissect. Let me know what you think about that Mount Rushmore from the NFL. All right. Again, this is the X Factor Sports Podcast, Season 5, Episode 2, the fan appreciation episode. Want to give a special shout out and thanks to all the people that watch the show, all the people that like it on TikTok, Instagram, all the reels, everybody that pays attention to the show. I appreciate you and thank you guys for tuning in. Keep on watching. All right. Now let's move over to the NBA. So this list obviously will be shorter because we're doing the Mount Rushmore for 5 positions. All right. We got the positions in the NBA and the 4 top players from that position. We're going to start with those point guards. In the Mount Rushmore for the point guards, you got the great Magic Johnson, Steph Curry, living legend, still playing in the league, and he's on the Mount Rushmore, which is incredible. Isaiah Thomas, and the big O, Oscar Robertson. If I think about it, when I did the NFL, is anybody still playing? I think Travis Kelce is still playing, and he's on the Mount Rushmore. I don't know if any other player in the NFL is active that's on that list but him. But y'all got to fact check and let me know because I'd have to go back. But on this list, as you can see right now, Steph Curry still alive and well and playing basketball in the NBA and is on this Mount Rushmore. So that's what I think of when I think of point guards. These are the 4 greatest point guards of all time. And when I think PGs, this is where it is right here. All right, Magic, Steph, Zeke, and the big O. We move over to the shooting guard position. We already know what time it is with this. The greatest player to ever play the game, Michael Jordan. Kobe Bryant, Kobe Bean Bryant, rest in peace. Also rest in peace to his father, Joe Jelly Bean Bryant, who passed away yesterday. I think he was 68, 69 years old. Rest in peace to Joe Jelly Bean. Up there with his son now and his granddaughter. But Kobe Bryant makes the shooting guard Mount Rushmore along with D. Wade and the great Jerry West. Now, this era of guys, everybody gonna be like, what about AI? What about James Harden? Listen, rest in peace to Jerry West also. Jerry West is the NBA logo for a reason. He is one of the founding fathers of the NBA, of the transition of the NBA out of the George Mikan, that era, right? When that era changed from the Minneapolis Lakers, Jerry West was one of the founders that moved the league to the West Coast. There wasn't any basketball over there. Because of Jerry West's play, he is the reason why the Lakers are playing in Los Angeles. All right. And if you don't think that's a part of history and deserves to be on the mountaintop with these other 3 shooting guards, you're crazy. All right. Understand what history is. Jerry West, MJ, Kobe, and D Wade. Go back and look at some of Jerry West's numbers and you tell me, name other shooting guards other than the 3 I just named that will be better than him. You crazy. All right. On to the small forwards. And remember, this is a Mount Rushmore. So there can only be 4. With the small forwards, you got LeBron James, KD, Larry Bird, and the great Elgin Baylor. With KD and LeBron, again, active players making the Mount Rushmore already etched in stone while still playing. Larry, legend, and rest in peace, the great Elgin Baylor. Like Jerry West, when we talk about saving the league, Elgin Baylor was the NBA's first franchise player. What do you mean by that, Jay? The Minneapolis Lakers is who drafted him. So before the Lakers were in LA, they were in Minneapolis, hence the name Lakers, right? Back then in the 50s, the owner almost sold the franchise. They were so bad after George Mikan left, he almost sold the team. They signed Elgin Baylor to a contract. I think it was like a $20,000 contract to keep him on the team, to make him the first franchise player. Elgin Baylor literally saved the franchise, y'all. Do you understand what I'm saying? If they didn't sign this dude, the Lakers would not exist. So when you talk about history and you talk about Mount Rushmore players, Elgin Baylor saved one of the most historic franchises in sports history before they even got to LA. And oh yeah, let's get into basketball. He averaged 27 and 14 for his career. All right. So he wasn't a slouch either. 13 seasons, 11-time All-Star, 10-time first-team All-NBA. This is in a league with Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Oscar Robertson. He averaging 27 and 14 as a small forward, putting up 60-point games, right? That guy. Elgin Baylor is the guy, the first star, the first small forward to ever do it. All right. And of course, we already know what LBJ represents. We already know what KD represents, Larry, legend. We already know what these guys are. So to be on there, on that Mount Rushmore with the great Elgin Baylor is an honor for them. All right. Now let's move on to the power forwards, the Mount Rushmore, another list that did not take me any time. And I'll tell you what, I'm old enough to remember all 4 of these players in their prime and be blessed to watch all 4 of them play. Tim Duncan, the big fundamental, Big Ticket, KG, the mailman, and Chuck, Charles Barkley. These 4 power forwards I don't think there's an argument about anybody being better than them at the power forward position. The crazy thing about KG and Tim Duncan, when they were in their prime in the 2000s, that was the debate. Who's the better power forward, KG or Tim Duncan? And they played in the golden age for power forwards. Antonio McDyess, Sheed, you got Chris Webber, Dirk, like all these guys played in the same era with them. So for them to stand amongst those two, to be the standouts in the 2000s and be one of the greatest players of all time, they're definitely two of the greatest power forwards. And then you have the exact same thing in the 90s. Who's the best power forward? Karl Malone or Chuck or Charles Barkley? Go back and look at Charles Barkley, all right? Before he got on NBA on TNT, and y'all see he's older now, he's in his 60s, go back and look at what Charles Barkley used to do to the NBA at 6'5". All right, he has rebounding titles at 6'5". In a league where all the centers, it was 7-footers on every team back when Charles Barkley played. And he led the league in rebounds multiple times. Won an MVP in the Jordan era. In Jordan's prime, Charles Barkley won a league MVP, and he deserved it. All right? So chill out on not knowing who Charles Barkley is. When you talk Mount Rushmore, power forwards, Chuck's in there. All right? And last but not least, the centers. Now, I know this is going to make some people mad, right? But I'm going to explain why, and I'm going to explain why you can't get mad. And this is why we have a Mount Rushmore, and this is why there's only 4 on it. When we get to the centers, you got, of course, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, second greatest player of all time, the only player I'll argue that I'll accept an argument for as the greatest player of all time other than MJ is if you talk to me about Kareem. You talk about any other player, get out of my face. Wilt Chamberlain, the great Bill Russell, and Hakeem Olajuwon. Yes, that is the 4 greatest centers. Now, I know I'm going to hear some feedback and some flack. What about Shaq, most dominant player, yada, yada, yada. Listen, Hakeem Olajuwon was just as skilled offensively as Shaq, if not better. And defensively, it wasn't even close. Okay? Shaq wasn't even close defensively to Hakeem Olajuwon, right? And they played head-to-head, and we know what happened. So, when it comes to centers, and you look at this list, 3 of the 4 centers are the top 3 rebounders in NBA history. And oh, by the way, the other one is the all-time leader in blocks. The great Bill Russell, we know what he represents. He damn near invented defense, rebound, fast break to the NBA, right? During an era where the same year that Wilt Chamberlain averaged 50 points and 20 rebounds, and Oscar Robertson led the league and averaged a triple-double, and Elgin Baylor, remember I was telling y'all about him, 27 and 14. In that same year, Wilt Chamberlain won the MVP. To tell you how, not Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell won the MVP. So you guys understand what Bill Russell represents. All right? And then the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was an all-time leading scorer up until a couple years ago. These are the greatest centers. These are the greatest players by position. And that's why we do a Mount Rushmore. If we want to do a greatest players of all time and we want to just do it without any position, we can have that conversation. But to give everybody their proper due and their respect in this 50th show, we showing love to the top players at their positions of all time in the NBA. All right? So you guys let me know what you think. Again, this is a fan appreciation episode, so we want you guys to interact. Give me your hell no, that don't make sense. You forgot him and him and him. I love to hear all of the feedback, the likes, the dislikes, all of it. Go ahead and send it out to me. Now, before we get out of here, you know we always got to hit y'all with that 2-minute warning. Fans love that. One of the greatest segments of the show. And when we roll out of here, we're going to talk about this. Accepting the apologies you've never received. Think about that. All right. In order to move on and be happy in life, you have to accept the apologies that you will never receive. If somebody hurt your feelings when you were a kid, if somebody did something wrong to you, if somebody did something wrong to you in your adult life, In order for you to move on past that, you can't let that negative thing or the disagreement or that situation keep you down. You can't let it keep you from moving forward and staying positive and being happy. The only way you'll be able to move forward is accepting that you probably won't get that apology from them. And once you can accept that in your heart and you can accept that the apology won't come, you will be able to move forward and continue to be happy. So just remember that next time you think about it, or if you had an issue, you had some problems in the past with some people or anything like that, just take a step back, accepting that you'll never receive that apology from that person, and continue to move forward. That's how you'll be able to get through it. All right. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to the X Factor Sports Podcast, Season 5, Episode 2, the 50th show. I can't believe I've done 50 shows. We've done 50 shows together. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Shout out to everybody, like I said, that watched the show, that's buying the apparel. D. Will, all the boys here in Kansas City, X Plan, Boosie, everybody that's got him, my boy Jason, everybody that's tuning in to the show, Katie, Cat Greg, always tuning in, everybody at Bogey's Pub, thank you guys for tuning and following the show. Be sure to go there and enjoy some games at Bogey's. And last but not least, Miss D. We cannot forget Miss D for all the work she's put in behind the scenes. Couldn't have been to 50 shows without the help from Miss D. Love you. Thank you very much. Hopefully, I don't drive her too crazy with this and she continues to ride with it. Thank you guys for tuning in to the X Factor Sports Podcast, the 50th show. Be sure to shoot a message to me if you're interested in any apparel. We got everything you need, shirt sizes and colors. Episode 3 next week, we get into some more USA basketball. We're getting closer to the Olympics, so you know we got to talk about that. This is Jay Mondane of the X Factor Sports Podcast. Peace.